The boardroom was stifling, the air filled with the silent anticipation of those gathered. A palpable tension hanging like a storm cloud ready to burst. I stood at the threshold, my heart pounding with the rhythm of a war drum, the weight of the moment pressing down on me like a suffocating shroud. There was no turning back now. This was my moment of reckoning, not just with them, but with myself. As I stepped forward, the polished floors seemed to swallow my footsteps, each step drawing every eye in the room toward me. Her eyes met mine first, an unmistakable flicker of recognition and dread flaring in her pupils. In that fleeting moment, all the shared years, whispered secrets, and hollow assurances unraveled between us, leaving nothing but a void. The high-backed chairs creaked as heads turned toward the projection screen, which stood as silent witness to the drama about to unfold. My wife's lover, the man who had once been an untouchable figure in my mind, sat at the head of the table, exuding an arrogance that could not shield him from the inevitable. His face was a mask of confusion, rapidly shifting as the gravity of the situation seeped into his consciousness. My voice, steady but laced with a cold intensity, broke the silence. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption, but I believe these revelations demand immediate attention. With a subtle nod, my co-conspirator activated the presentation. Slides flickered to life, each image a dagger aimed at the heart of their deceit. The first picture appeared, a damning image of my wife and her paramour, entwined in a moment of intimacy, oblivious to the world outside their betrayal. Gasps erupted around the table, a symphony of shock and disbelief echoing through the room. The CEO, her lover, leaned forward, his demeanor crumbling as he realized the magnitude of the evidence. Desperation etched itself into his features, his pleas for understanding falling on deaf ears as whispers of ruin fluttered among the gathered executives. She was my confidant, my partner, I continued, my voice unwavering amidst the chaos. And yet, she chose to shatter our lives for a fleeting illusion. My wife remained silent, her face a pale canvas painted with shame and fear. Words failed her. The carefully constructed facade she wore so effortlessly had crumbled under the weight of her own duplicity. The room, once a bastion of her professional triumphs, now served as the stage for her downfall. As the projection advanced, showcasing emails and messages tangled in a web of lies, I felt a visceral satisfaction, a vindication that coursed through me with each revelation. This was not just about retribution. It was a reclamation of self-worth, a dismantling of the narrative spun to confine me in shadows. The room was silent, save for the shuffling of papers and the mumbled reassurances exchanged in vain. The lover, once so formidable, now seemed a shell, his bravado stripped bare. Watching him unravel, I felt no pity, only the sheer affirmation that justice, no matter how delayed, was served. And yet, amid the triumph, a quiet reflection settled over me. It was a victory laced with the bittersweet acknowledgement of what once was, a life now irrevocably altered. But beneath the layers of hurt and betrayal lay a newfound clarity. This moment was not merely an end, but a beginning, a decisive step toward a future unclouded by deception. For a long moment, I let the silence envelop us, the echoes of shattered trust reverberating through the room. As I turned to leave, I carried with me not only the satisfaction of exposing the truth, but also the realization that this was just the first stride in my journey of reclaiming what was lost. My heart, once burdened by the weight of unanswered questions and unspoken fears, now beat with a deliberate resolve. As I walked out, I whispered the mantra that had guided me here, a promise to myself. This is not just revenge, it's reclaiming my dignity. And as the heavy doors swung shut behind me, sealing away the chaos within, I stepped into the light of a world waiting to be reinvented, ready to embrace the liberation that lay ahead. The afternoon sun streamed through the living room windows, casting a warm, golden hue on the familiar family portrait that hung above the mantel. In that framed moment, we seemed so perfect, frozen in time, each smile genuine, every touch a testament to our love. Yet, as I stood there, the image felt like a cruel mockery, a reminder of how far we had drifted from the life we once knew. I leaned against the doorway, letting my mind wander back to the halcyon days, when laughter echoed in these very walls and happiness seemed as immutable as the changing seasons. Those were times of unyielding trust, when we believed that our shared dreams could weather any storm. There were the vacations, those cherished escapes to places where worries had no place. I recalled our trip to the coast, the salty breeze ruffling our hair as we walked hand in hand along the shoreline, waves lapping at our feet. The ocean whispered secrets only we understood, promises of forever as endless as the horizon. Our home, too, was a canvas of memories. Each room held echoes of laughter and whispered confessions, of quiet mornings and bustling evenings. The kitchen, where we often cooked together, felt like a sacred space, every meal a ritual of love. I remembered the way she'd hum softly, a melody that wove itself into the fabric of our everyday life, soothing in its constancy. And then there was my career, the pride I took in building something meaningful, fueled by the unwavering support of my wife. She was my confidant and my cheerleader, the foundation upon which I built my dreams. Her belief in me seemed unshakable, a steadfast reminder that together we were invincible. But as I stood there, enveloped in the warmth of the setting sun, the cracks in our facade became impossible to ignore. They were subtle at first, an uncharacteristic tension in her shoulders, a hesitance in her gaze. I dismissed them as remnants of the everyday stresses we all faced, too blinded by trust to see the signs for what they truly were. How naive I was, I thought bitterly. How easily I accepted her explanations, reassurances that now felt hollow and insincere. Those once comforting words had become like echoes in a deserted chamber, bouncing off walls built on deceit. The realization was a slow, creeping thing, like shadows lengthening with the evening. It started with the little things. A new perfume she'd never worn before, the scent unfamiliar and unsettling. I remember how it clung to her, lingering long after she'd left the room. A constant, nagging presence that whispered of secrets untold. Then there were the late-night texts, the soft glow of her phone casting an eerie light on her face as she chuckled over work matters. I told myself it was nothing, that she deserved her privacy, even as a part of me began to wither under the weight of doubt. And I remember vividly the moment I met him, the charismatic friend, introduced at a social gathering. There was nothing overtly suspicious in their interaction, yet something about him struck me as too familiar, too knowing. It was the way he looked at her, an intimacy in his gaze that tightened my gut with unease. But denial is a powerful force, and for a time, I let it lull me into a false sense of security. I clung to the pleasant memories, the laughter of past days, using them as shields against the growing whispers of my intuition. Still, the signs were inescapable, the truth an insistent tide that refused to be ignored. Her phone, once left in plain sight, became an enigma, guarded with a vigilance that only fueled my suspicions. The once open book of our lives had become a locked diary, each secret a barrier between us. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the room in a soft twilight, I sighed deeply, my breath stirring the dust motes that danced lazily in the fading light. The portrait above me seemed to stare back with a silent accusation, a testament to what once was, now nothing more than a mirage. Yet, even amidst the ruins of my disillusionment, there was a flicker of resolve. I knew that beneath the ashes of our fallen dreams lay the embers of truth, waiting for the right moment to ignite. I was no longer content to live in the shadow of lies, and with each passing day, the path to reclaiming my dignity became clearer. This was only the beginning, I told myself, my reflection mirrored in the glass of the portrait. The journey ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but in that uncertainty lay the promise of liberation. A future that, while unknown, beckoned with the tantalizing promise of a new dawn. The scent hit me unexpectedly one morning, a fragrance that was sharp and unfamiliar, as if the air around her had changed overnight. My senses heightened, and I found myself staring at my wife, searching for some unnoticed shift in her expression or demeanor. The aroma clung to her like an intrusive thought that wouldn't leave my mind. It was just perfume, I told myself, but something deeper whispered that it was a harbinger of change. My suspicions simmered beneath the surface, a low hum of unease that I couldn't shake. As the days passed, I noticed more peculiarities, each one a jigsaw piece of a puzzle I was reluctant to assemble. Late at night, as I lay beside her, pretending to sleep, I would hear the soft tap of her fingers on her phone, see the gentle glow illuminating her face. Her laughter, once so intimate and shared, now felt foreign, tinged with something that didn't belong between us. Once, I caught a glimpse of a message flashing on her screen, a name I didn't recognize, followed by a string of emojis. When I asked, she shrugged it off as work-related, but her explanation felt rehearsed, lacking the warmth that once characterized our exchanges. Her phone had become an enigma, held closer to her than ever before, even charging it in another room, away from my prying eyes. It was at a corporate event that I first met him. My wife introduced him casually, as if he were just another colleague. He was charming in a way that set my teeth on edge, his presence commanding yet overly familiar. Watching her interact with him felt like watching a dance, each movement calculated and precise, synchronized perfectly. The way his eyes lingered on her, the subtle touch on her arm. These were gestures that should have seemed innocuous but instead screamed of something more profound. Our conversations grew stilted, once effortless banter now replaced by stunted exchanges. She would recount her day with an air of detachment, details glossed over with practiced ease. Her stories, vibrant and full of life, had turned into mere outlines, devoid of color and meaning. I was left to fill the gaps, to wonder what truths lay beneath her carefully crafted facade. In quiet moments, I would find myself staring at her, trying to decipher the reality from my growing paranoia. Each time she left for work or returned late with flimsy explanations, the wall of doubt between us grew thicker. Our home, once a sanctuary, felt like a stage where we rehearsed lines from a play neither of us truly believed anymore. One afternoon, she returned home with a distinctly different coat, the hem brushing her knees, its scent reminiscent of those clandestine late-night messages. "A gift," she explained, her voice light, but I saw the flicker of something in her eyes, a shadow of guilt that vanished as quickly as it appeared. That night, as she showered, I searched it, my hands trembling as I sifted through pockets, finding nothing but the lingering aroma of uncertainty. Despite the growing evidence, I clung to denial, fearing the confrontation that loomed on the horizon. Yet deep down, I knew that the truth was a beacon I could no longer ignore. It beckoned me with a promise of clarity, though the cost of illumination was the disintegration of the life we had built together. The turning point came unexpectedly. In the quiet moments of dawn, as I sipped my coffee alone, her phone buzzed with a message she had forgotten to silence. The tone was unmistakably intimate, a universe of emotions contained in that simple notification. My heart clenched in an iron grip of betrayal, and I knew then that the time for ignorance had passed. I composed myself, choosing my next steps with care. This was my life unraveling before me, each thread of deception woven tightly into the fabric of our existence. But I refused to let it crumble without taking back control. That evening, as she entered the room, I watched her, my eyes tracing the familiar yet now untrustworthy contours of her face. I understood that the scent of her new perfume was more than an olfactory change. It was a signal, a harbinger of the inevitable confrontation I could no longer postpone. With a resolve solidified by the weight of my discovery, I prepared myself for the unmasking of truths that would forever change the trajectory of my life. The time had come to unveil the lies hidden in plain sight, and with each step I took, I felt the chains of doubt falling away, replaced by the certainty of what must be done. The morning light filtered through the blinds, casting long shadows across the room, a harsh reminder of the tangled web I was preparing to unravel. I sat at the edge of the bed, the room around me heavy with a silence that seemed to encroach upon my very sanity. My mind was a battlefield, thoughts clashing like titans, each one threatening to break the fragile peace of my resolve. The path ahead was clear, yet fraught with a storm of emotions that churned within me. Anger, betrayal, sorrow, all demanding their moment on the stage of my consciousness. Her betrayal had been a slow poison, seeping into every corner of my life, warping the once vibrant tapestry of love we had woven together. Driven by a need for clarity, I turned to the only solace I could find, the digital realm where secrets were laid bare. Her phone records were a roadmap of deceit, every call and message a breadcrumb leading me to the undeniable truth. I traced each number, each exchange, growing more certain of the pattern that emerged. One that painted my wife as a stranger, someone I no longer recognized or trusted. A part of me wanted to confront her immediately, to demand explanations, to lay bare the tangled mess of her infidelity. But I knew that impulse was born of desperation, not strategy. I needed more than angry accusations. I needed proof, tangible, irrefutable evidence that would withstand the weight of denial. That afternoon, as she enjoyed a rare outing, I embarked on my own quest for vindication. I rifled through her belongings with a precision that felt both foreign and necessary. Each drawer and shelf became a potential treasure trove of damning discoveries. My hands shook as I uncovered small tokens. Gifts given in secret, tokens of affection meant for someone else. There was a bracelet, dainty and elegant, its silver links catching the light with a cruel gleam. It was an anniversary gift, she'd said, a lie now laid bare by the engraving. A date that was not ours. With each find, the facade she carefully maintained crumbled a little more, revealing the cold, hard truth beneath. As evening descended, my resolve hardened. I decided that this pursuit of truth required a deeper intrusion, and so I turned to her laptop, a device she used as much for work as for her personal musings. Weeks of neglect in favor of my own devices meant discovering her passwords was less a challenge, more a calculated risk. In my search, I unearthed emails replete with intimate exchanges, a tapestry woven from words that should have been reserved for us alone. Each letter read like a betrayal, each phrase a mockery of the vows we had once spoken. The knowledge that they had shared what was meant to be ours alone left me hollow. Then, there were the photographs, their colorful deceit stark against the screen's glow. They were a testament to a life led apart from me, a world where I was nothing more than an inconvenience to be maneuvered around. Their smiles, so radiant and unguarded, left no room for doubt. These images were the final nails in the coffin of our shared life, each click of the camera a death knell for the man I had once been. Even in the throes of revelation, a part of me wept for the loss of what we had once shared. The memories we had forged, the laughter that used to fill our days, all now marred by the indelible stain of her betrayal. But I knew mourning was a luxury I could ill afford. There was work to be done, a path to be paved toward a future I would reclaim. In the solitude of my discovery, a new clarity emerged. This would not break me. Her lies, as deep and tangled as they were, would serve as the catalyst for my rebirth. I vowed to rise from the ashes of our shared life, to craft a narrative that was wholly mine, untainted by deceit. That night, beneath the shadows of our shared home, I began to draft a plan. The evidence was in my hands, a powerful weapon to be wielded with precision. I knew the confrontation would be inevitable, the moment when I would lay bare the truth at her feet, demanding nothing less than her complete acknowledgement of her transgressions. As I closed the laptop, my heart heavy with the weight of my discoveries, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. The path to vengeance, to reclaiming my dignity, was fraught with peril, but it was one I was ready to tread. For in the end, this was more than revenge. It was the reclamation of self, a journey through the shadows to find the light of a new dawn. And with every piece of evidence I unearthed, I took one step closer to a future unburdened by lies, ready to embrace the liberation I so desperately craved. The air in the room was thick with tension, as if the very walls absorbed the weight of unspoken words. I stood before her, a chasm of betrayal between us, the silence stretching like a taut string ready to snap. My heart pounded in my ears, every beat marking the countdown to a confrontation long overdue. I had rehearsed this moment countless times in my mind, but now, standing face to face with the woman I had once considered my everything. The enormity of what lay ahead was both daunting and liberating. She looked up from her seat, her eyes searching mine for answers I was determined never to give. The evidence was laid out between us, a damning collection of her deceit, emails, messages, and photographs, each one a testament to the distance that had grown between us, cultivated by secrets and lies. Her lips parted, an attempt at words that faltered under the weight of my unwavering gaze. "What is this?" she asked, her voice a fragile thread. It was a question steeped in desperation, as if acknowledging the truth aloud would unravel the carefully constructed life she had woven around her duplicity. "You know exactly what it is?" I replied, my tone steady, yet laced with a cold resolve I barely recognized. The words were a release, each one slicing through the pretense that had sullied our marriage. Her eyes flickered with something akin to defiance, but it was quickly overpowered by the shadow of guilt. She reached for the photographs, as if touching them would somehow erase the reality they captured. The silence stretched on, a void filled with the echoes of what had once been, before deception had taken its toll. "You've misunderstood," she began, her voice trembling as she attempted to reclaim some semblance of control. But each excuse, each denial, was met with the cold finality of the truth that lay bare between us. The pieces of our broken past scattered around like dead leaves, refusing to be swept away by her half-hearted explanations. I leaned against the table, feeling the hard edge dig into my palms, anchoring me to the present moment. "Do you think I wanted to find these?" I asked, the words tumbling out with a raw intensity that surprised even me. "I trusted you. I believed in us. And yet, here we are." Our wedding vows echoed in my mind, each promise now stripped of its meaning, hollow against the reality of her betrayal. I remembered the day clearly, the warmth of the sun on our backs, the shared smiles that spoke of a future filled with love and unity. The ring on my finger felt impossibly heavy, a reminder of the bond that had been severed by her actions. Her eyes brimmed with unshed tears, yet I felt no sympathy, no softness for the woman before me. The ache of betrayal had hardened into a steely resolve, a protective armor forged in the fires of discovery and doubt. She was no longer the woman I had cherished, but a stranger who had cast a shadow over every cherished memory. Why? The single word hung between us, a question loaded with the weight of broken dreams and shattered trust. Her silence screamed louder than any words she could have offered, each second stretching into eternity. For a moment, she searched my face, perhaps seeking the man who would forgive, who would relent and allow the past to bury itself beneath layers of hurt and misunderstanding. But that man was lost to her, buried beneath the avalanche of lies she had so carefully constructed. Her shoulders sagged under an invisible burden, the reality of her choices crashing over her like waves against the shore. There was no more room for games, for charades of innocence that only deepened the chasm between us. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered, each word a ghost of sincerity. But sincerity was a currency long spent, leaving only the leverage of truth to guide my actions. "And yet, here we are," I echoed, my conviction unyielding. This confrontation was not merely an end, but a turning point, a reckoning that would lead to closure, to the liberation I sought. The moment stretched, a taut silence filled with the remnants of our shared past, until it finally broke with her quiet sobs. In those tears, I saw the end of an era, a chapter closed with a finality that would not be undone. As I turned to leave, the shadows of our home embraced me with a familiarity I no longer found comforting. The journey ahead was daunting, a landscape filled with uncertainty, but also with the promise of renewal and self-discovery. I stepped into the cool night air, leaving behind not only the echoes of betrayal, but the chains of a life built on fragile foundations. This was my path forward, an odyssey of healing and reclamation, a future unburdened by deceit and anchored by the unwavering resolve that had brought me to this moment. The weight of betrayal no longer crushed me. Instead, it propelled me toward a new dawn, filled with the promise of a life reclaimed. In the quiet solitude of pre-dawn, I found myself at the kitchen table, the world outside still cloaked in a slumbering darkness. The air was cool, crisp with the promise of another day, yet inside, I felt anything but refreshed. My mind was a whirring machine, each cog turning over plans, plots, and strategies. With the confrontation behind me, I knew the time had come to transform the bitter aftertaste of betrayal into something tangible, a methodical plan of retribution. The house was eerily silent, as if it too held its breath, waiting for the tide of change that I was determined to unleash. I sipped my coffee, the hot liquid scalding my throat but grounding me in the reality of the choices I was about to make. This was more than revenge. It was about reclaiming my space, my dignity, and setting right the imbalance their deception had wrought. With a determined calm, I opened my laptop, its glow casting shadows across the room. My first move required allies, those few who stood beside me when the world felt as though it had turned its back. I reached out to an old friend whose expertise lay in the shadows of the digital world. Trust was a precious commodity, and in him, I found the unwavering support that had become so rare. His agreement was immediate, his loyalty as steadfast as ever, offering me both the tools and confidence needed to proceed. He worked swiftly, his fingers a blur over his keyboard as he delved into the digital entanglements that hid my wife's indiscretions. Meanwhile, I focused on the practicalities of liberation, financial independence, and legal safeguards. The shared accounts, once symbols of our intertwined lives, were now liabilities to be severed with surgical precision. I consulted a lawyer, discreet but effective, crafting documents that would fortify my defenses and protect the remnants of the life I had yet to rebuild. Evening shadows slanted through the windows as the hours passed in contemplative silence. My plan was not one born of haste or passion, but of calculated intention. I imagined the moment of my wife's awakening. Her realization that the security she had taken for granted was as fragile as the lies she had spun to entangle me. It would be a reckoning, swift and unyielding, as inevitable as the tide. Under the cloak of darkness, I orchestrated a scene that would expose her duplicity to the world she had so arrogantly tried to deceive. The upcoming business event, a corporate trip meticulously planned months in advance, provided the perfect backdrop. I could observe, expertly hidden in plain sight, as she tangled herself further in the web that would soon ensnare her. She was unaware of the surveillance that now shadowed her every move, the digital breadcrumbs leading straight to the heart of their clandestine affair. As I monitored the unfolding drama, a part of me marveled at her audacity, the brazen confidence with which she maneuvered through her deceit. My friend's digital prowess unveiled correspondence that would shatter any facade of innocence she attempted to maintain. With this evidence gathered, the stage was set for the impending confrontation, the moment when her carefully constructed world would collapse under the weight of truth. As I reviewed the collected messages and financial transactions, I realized that this was not just an unraveling of her lies, but a reclamation of my narrative. Each piece of evidence solidified my resolve, propelling me toward the inevitable outcome with a confidence I had long thought lost. The corporate event loomed, a perfect arena for the final act of her downfall. I meticulously mapped out every detail, ensuring that my execution was seamless, leaving no opportunity for escape or denial. The lover, so entrenched in his own sense of invincibility, would find himself blindsided, his empire crumbling as swiftly as the facade he had helped to construct. Throughout the preparation, a strange calm enveloped me, a tranquility born of acceptance and determination. This was not a descent into madness or desperation, but a calculated ascent to justice. In each action, I found a semblance of closure, an assurance that I was taking back what had been unjustly stripped away. I knew the upcoming moments would mark a pivotal change, not just for her and her lover, but for me as well. In dismantling their deception, I was rebuilding myself, brick by brick, into someone stronger, more resolute than before. And in this transformation lay the promise of a future untainted by the shadows of betrayal. As dawn crept over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, I felt the weight of the night's work lift from my shoulders. The plan was set, the pieces in motion, ready to converge in a symphony of revelation and consequence. This was my moment, not just of revenge, but of rebirth. A future awaited, shimmering with the possibilities of a life reclaimed, a life lived on my terms. And as the morning light poured through the windows, bathing the room in its warmth, I knew this was the beginning of that new chapter, a testament to resilience and the unwavering pursuit of dignity. The weight of anticipation settled over me as I approached the towering glass edifice that housed the corporate event, each step echoing with the rhythm of my calculated resolve. The world outside seemed oblivious to the drama poised to unfold within its confines, but I carried with me the knowledge that today would mark a turning point, a reckoning that would leave no room for ambiguity or escape. As I entered the room, a sea of well-dressed executives mingled, their laughter and clinking glasses creating a symphony of superficial normalcy. My eyes scanned the crowd until they found her, my wife, standing with an air of unearned confidence, her laughter effortlessly slipping into the polite facade of corporate banter. Nearby he stood, the lover, the CEO, exuding the smug assurance of a man untouched by consequence. My heart clenched, a visceral reminder of the deception that had threaded its way through my life. Yet beneath the surface, a strange clarity emerged, a calmness born of the certainty that today, the truth would rise to the surface, undeniable and irreversible. With the precision of a chess master, I maneuvered through the throng, each step drawing me closer to the stage where my meticulously crafted plan would unfold. The room was alive with a current of conversations and clinking glasses, but beneath it all, I sensed the undercurrent of anticipation, a tension that mirrored my own. The moment arrived when the meeting was called to order, the crowd settling into silence as the CEO took to the podium. His voice, confident and commanding, filled the space, but I knew that beneath his veneer of power lay the fragility of a man about to face his undoing. I stepped forward, a figure emerging from the shadows, my presence arresting attention as heads turned in surprise. My wife's eyes locked onto mine, a flicker of recognition stirring in their depths. A fleeting moment where time seemed to stand still, suspended between the past we shared and the inevitable unmasking about to unfold. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my voice steady and resolute, cutting through the room with the precision of a blade. I apologize for this unexpected interlude, but there are truths that demand our immediate attention. A murmur rippled through the audience, curiosity mingling with the undercurrent of dread that electrified the air. My heart pounded with a rhythm that matched the intensity of the moment, each beat echoing the mantra that had guided me to this precipice. Reclaim my dignity, expose the lie. With a nod to my accomplice, the presentation flickered to life, a sequence of images cascading across the screen. The first slide appeared, an intimate photograph that shattered the silence with its undeniable evidence. It was a tableau of betrayal, captured in an unguarded moment, the image searing itself into the consciousness of all who bore witness. Gasps punctuated the air, a symphony of shock and disbelief that reverberated through the room. My wife's lover, the CEO, paled visibly, his mask of composure crumbling as he leaned forward, desperation etched into every line of his face. Pleas for discretion, for mercy, tumbled from his lips, but the room had turned against him. A jury of his peers now witnessing the crumbling of his carefully constructed empire. My wife stood frozen, the color draining from her cheeks as the weight of exposure crashed over her. Her poise, so carefully maintained, dissolved under the harsh light of truth. Words failed her, leaving only the stark reality of her choices reflected in the images projected for all to see. In that moment, I felt a surge of triumph, a vindication that washed over me with a visceral satisfaction. This was not merely about revenge. It was the reclamation of my narrative, a dismantling of the deceit that had sought to define me. With each revelation, the chains of betrayal fell away, replaced by the liberating certainty that justice, though delayed, was unequivocally served. Amid the chaos, my voice rang clear, unwavering amidst the cacophony of whispers and disbelief. What you see here is the truth, a deception that has been allowed to flourish unchecked. But today the lies end. The room was a storm of reactions. Anger, disbelief, a smattering of pity. Yet through it all, I stood resolute, my gaze never wavering as I met my wife's eyes one last time. There was no need for words. The silence spoke volumes, a testament to the end of an era and the beginning of something new. With deliberate calm, I turned and walked away, leaving behind the ruins of their deception. The doors closed behind me, sealing away the chaos within, as I stepped into the light of a world ready to be reimagined. A world where my dignity was no longer a question, but a statement of intent. The triumph was bittersweet, the echoes of a shared past still haunting the peripheries of my mind. Yet as I moved forward, I carried with me the promise of a future unburdened by betrayal, a life reclaimed from the shadows of deceit. The journey ahead was mine to define, and with each step, I embraced the liberation that lay ahead, a testament to resilience and the unwavering pursuit of truth. The sun had long dipped below the horizon, casting the world into darkness. As I sat alone in my new apartment, a space untouched by the shadows of my past, a blank slate waiting to be filled with new memories. The air was still, save for the soft hum of the city outside, a constant reminder of life's ceaseless flow. In the quiet cocoon of my solitude, I allowed myself to breathe deeply, the weight of recent events slowly lifting from my shoulders. The revenge was complete, a chapter closed with the finality of a slamming door. Yet, as I reclined against the worn leather couch, I felt the echoes of that journey reverberate within me. Each step, each revelation, a thread woven into the tapestry of my newfound existence. It was over, and in the silence that followed, I was left to ponder what lay beyond. For years, my life had been entwined with hers, every decision a reflection of our shared dreams. But now, the mirror shattered, the pieces lay scattered, waiting to be recombined into something uniquely mine. Each day since the confrontation, I found myself redefining the boundaries of who I was, shedding the skin of a life built on deception to let the essence of my true self emerge, raw and unfiltered. The clean apartment was a reflection of this rebirth. Bare walls waiting for the touch of my personality, empty rooms filled with the potential of uncharted futures. I had taken great care in selecting this place, seeking refuge in its simplicity and solitude, its promise of a new beginning. The boxes were still packed, each one a testament to the chapters of my life I was ready to write anew. In these moments of introspection, I discovered a part of me that yearned for connection, not as a balm for my wounds, but as a celebration of what I had become. I was no longer defined by betrayal. Instead, I was a testament to resilience, my scars a map of where I had been, not where I was headed. Tentatively, I began to explore this new landscape of possibilities. I reached out to old friends and acquaintances, weaving a network of support and camaraderie that had once slipped through my fingers amidst the haze of my former life. I rediscovered forgotten passions, music that stirred my soul, books that ignited the fire of curiosity within me, hobbies that brought joy untainted by the shadows of past desires. One evening, while wandering through the aisles of an art gallery, I found myself drawn to a painting that spoke to me on a primal level. Its swirling colors and chaotic lines mirrored the turbulence I had endured, yet within its chaos, I discerned an undeniable beauty, a reminder that even in the throes of uncertainty, there exists a profound artistry in survival. It was here that I met her, a fellow wanderer in the gallery, eyes fixed on the same piece that had captivated me. Our conversation was easy, unburdened by the weight of expectations or the specter of past judgments. In her presence, I felt a flicker of something unfamiliar yet intriguing, hope. Our connection, fragile and tentative, became a gentle beacon, guiding me toward a future unbound by the shackles of what had been. We shared stories, laughter, and tentative dreams, each moment a step away from the solitary confinement of my past. And as we walked side by side through the gallery's corridors, I understood that this was not a replacement of what I had lost, but an addition to the narrative I was crafting. A life enriched by the lessons of betrayal, but no longer defined by them. The journal on my bedside table became a repository of my thoughts, each page a testament to the growth and reflection that accompanied my journey. As I penned my entries, I felt the catharsis of articulating my experiences, the ink staining the paper with the resilience that now coursed through my veins. Though the scars of betrayal would never fully fade, they no longer dictated my path. I had reclaimed my dignity, my autonomy, and in doing so, uncovered the strength to face the unknown with a renewed sense of purpose. In the soft glow of the apartment's dim lights, I closed the journal, a final entry capturing the resolve that had brought me to this juncture. The world outside was still shrouded in darkness, but within, I held the promise of a new dawn, one where I embraced not only the liberation of my past, but the endless possibilities that tomorrow held. As I lay in the stillness of the night, my heart beat with the rhythm of a life reclaimed, a testament to survival, rebirth, and the unyielding pursuit of a future unclouded by the shadows of yesterday.